Next cycle. All right. We good now? All right. Check. Yeah, it's a little loud, but I guess we can kind of get through it. All right, well, this has been a great series. I've learned a great deal of information from the book of John. I never realized how much information was packed into this area. The specifics, every single sentence seems like it meant something. And we're going to close tonight with 21, and we're going to see Jesus, the Lord's abundant grace, and also follow me. It's really strange because when you read John 20, as we did last week, we'll go through it, it seems like that should be the end, right? As soon as it hits at the end, it's almost like the final farewell and everything, and all of a sudden, you're getting ready to get out of the theater, and then here comes the epilogue. Comes up with another scene on it, right? And this is a really important scene, though, and it's something that I think that I know I have missed in the past, the importance of the grace of Jesus and also the what they call the recommissioning at that point. But before we get into that, let's go to our Lord in prayer. God, our Father in heaven, we come to you and we bow humbly to give you thanks for all we have, to give you thanks for the group that meets here, for your inspired word, for the interest that we have in this inspired word to better ourselves, to make us better Christians, stronger, to prepare ourselves to go out and to live a life of glory to you. We are so thankful for your abundant grace and also the examples that the apostles and your disciples of the past put forth to us. We pray, God, that we will continue to understand that and refresh our memories and continue to live that life as they did. We are so thankful for your Son Jesus and what he has done and the teaching that he has for us, and it's in his name that we pray. Amen. All right, so in 20, just to kind of level set where we were at, where we transitioned from, what was in 20 that you recall towards the end?
Thesis statement.
What was it?
The thesis statement.
The statement. What would expand on that?
It's the reason that the book was written.
The reason the book was written, and why was it?
So that you may believe.
So we can believe. And that almost seemed like, again, the end of the story, but then we come up with 21. It's very interesting, and we'll get into that as well. So in 20, we saw a witness, a female witness, and who was it? Witness of Jesus is Mary, right? She was one of the first ones to be able to witness Jesus is raising from the dead and comes back and sends the message, right? So she's the one who sends the message to who? Disciples. I mean, his disciples, can you imagine what they're feeling? They just don't know what's going on here. And here, the one that they've been following is final. It's as Jesus said, it is finished. It's final. They probably are still wondering what in the world is going on. They don't even know. Mary comes back to tend to the tomb. She sees it open. She sees Jesus, and she sees the two angels there. She's amazed. He tells her what? What does he tell her to do? Go tell the disciples. So she goes out and tells the disciples. They can't believe it. Who is it who comes back to the tomb? Who was it?
Peter and John.
Peter and John. We can see who's the fastest of the two.
Probably John.
John was the fastest of the two, and he runs on in there. At first, John goes to the front of the tomb and stops, looks in it, wondering what's going on, and what Peter and his normal attitude, what does he do? Runs right in, right? Just goes head first into that tomb and checks it out. And then they see a very purposeful resurrection, not something that was scurried, people taking him out, taking Jesus out of there. What showed us that it was very purposeful?
Linen cloth.
The way the linen cloth was all folded up. Very nice and neat, exactly in the place that it was, so it wasn't any kind of scurrying on out. So they go back out there, and then do they see Jesus right then at that point?
Yeah.
When did they see Jesus?
In the room.
they first came back to the room, and then who was there? The disciples were there, the apostles, except for, of course, Thomas, exactly. All right, so then at this point, it ends with the section where we just talked about, where we see the purpose of the book itself, and then we go into 21. And 21 is a little bit different, where the disciples go back home, and at that point they're probably wondering what is going on now, what are we going to do? And so what does Peter say? Let's go fishing, right? Let's go fishing. And what did the other one say? Okay, let's go fishing, right?
Why not?
Why not? You know, so I mean, they're probably a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's just put it that way at first. But we also know that, you know, I'm sure that there was some just kind of getting back to what they know best. Go ahead.
Well, just exactly. And that isn't necessarily the right response to what just happened to them. All right, guess let's go back to our day job. It's not what you do after you see the Son of God resurrect. So I think that this is sort of setting the stage for a wake-up call.
Okay, so we see the first scene, right? And let's read chapter or verses 1 through 3. Can I get a reader?
After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. And in this way he showed himself: Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. Said 1 through 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And they said to him, we're going with you also. They went out and immediately got into a boat, and that night they caught nothing.
Okay, so the 7 go out there. At first he enters it, the way John writes it, he talks about, after this, Jesus reveals himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Galilee. It's interesting how he just put that forward, and then he talked about what the disciples were doing. So they were at home, they were probably sitting back relaxing, I don't know what to do. So Peter says, let's go, I'm going fishing. And so who were the 7? We saw it was Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathanael, and the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples. We don't know who they were specifically. So as he says, I'm going fishing, I'm going back to what I'm good at, what I know what I'm doing. Right? I've done this all my life. Jesus just passed. He's not with us anymore. We're kind of lost. And they went out on the boat. I'm going fishing. They said, we will go with you. So they went out with him. And they went on the boat that night, and they caught nothing. So I mean, this is what that would be almost like, a professional hunter going out and catching nothing. A mechanic going out to fix a car, I can't fix the car. So everything was going wrong with them. They didn't catch any fish, right? I thought that was kind of interesting on how they went out there and they caught nothing. So he specifically stated that. It wasn't like they were catching a few and, well, it looks like we can do this well. We don't need any help. We got this here. So it's almost like a full circle. So at the Sea of Galilee, what happened back then? Was that kind of where Jesus first met them?
Yep, we called him.
Exactly. So the scene is set up where Jesus already knew exactly where he was going to reveal himself again. So he goes over there. I think it was in Luke, wasn't it? Luke 5, somewhere in there, when he initially saw them. So we go out there, they go out and fish, and they caught nothing. So what were the key observations that we see in this? We mentioned a few of them. Peter goes back to what they were doing best, and the others follow him. Right? It's interesting how Peter seems to always be the leader in a lot of the situations. And that's what I kind of wondered a lot about when Jesus comes back and appears in the first area that we see an interaction solo is with Jesus and Peter. And why is it always with Peter? Let's kind of think about that a little bit. And and why wasn't it the other 7? What was it that he's talking about that he has to give grace for? Think about that as we're getting into this a little bit closer. So the stage is set. The nets were empty. All night failure. And we see, okay, no fish. Jesus. Then we're going to see in verse the next verse is what actually happens after that. So let's read from 4 through 8. Can I get a reader from there?
Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, do you have any fish?" They answered, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciple came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off.
Interesting. So let's kind of get this picture in our minds of what's going on out here. They're about 100 yards off the shore. Jesus waits until daybreak. He probably knew they were out there. Of course he knows he was out there. He knew exactly where they were out there. He waits until daybreak, until they were absolutely dry of fish. You think that was a purpose? Yeah, of course. It was timing. Everything is timing with Jesus. We can see that. Where he waits until there, he stands at the end, unrecognizable, standing out there. It's just, from 100 yards out, you may not be able to see who it is, just, a man in a robe or something of that nature. And so he calls out, "Children, do you have any fish?" Why would he call them children? That's kind of interesting in itself. Because they are children. Right?
I wonder if that's like a
It could be
like a quirk of the language, like a normal
could
thing
be.
to say. I don't know.
kind of like when he says woman,
Yeah, like
children. And also maybe it shows that he's older, of course, because they're younger than him out there, so they probably didn't have any kind of offense by that. If you called out some fishermen out there and said, "Hey, children," that would be a little offensive, at least in our day. But
Like a wise old man sitting in a chair on the shore. I know he's not sitting in a chair, but it's like, "Hey, guys, why don't you throw it down on the right
your
side?"
kids caught
It's
anything?
like the most simple of things. Otherwise,
Right.
"All right, old man, we'll do what you
and it's funny. These are professional fishermen, right? They've been out there all day long. Same thing as in Luke 5. Throw it over here. Why? Okay, we're going to do it. This time they just went and did it. Threw it to the right hand side. Why the right hand side? I don't know, because he told them to. That's where he knows it doesn't matter what side it was. He's going to be able to put fish in that net, which they've been there all night long and not getting any. So they're probably wondering, this sounds a little familiar.
Seems like the deja vu would have kicked in. Hey, children, putting that on the other side. Wait a minute.
At that time, they would have.
Before, I know who you are.
Yeah, and they might have already still been thinking about it, right? But at that point, they still didn't, for some reason, kick in the deja vu. And there's a lot of deja vu in this. We're going to see when he comes back to the interaction with Peter. So more deja vu in this situation. So he goes over there. They cast the net out. They obey him. And what happens when you obey Christ? Good things happen. And what happened? Blessings happen. He provides for you. All of those things are there. So they obeyed. The nets were filled with so many fish. And I don't know if we got to the number yet, but we're going to see it's a lot of fish, right? And we're also going to see about the nets as well. We're going to see something in that nature as we go through. So Peter hears this. He throws on his outer garment and jumps into the sea. Typical Peter. So he's dressed. Basically, he's dressed, I guess, for his fishing. He takes his outer garb off. He's out there working all night long, getting wet or whatever, and he puts it on, takes off, jumps in there, 100 feet out, or 100 yards. I don't know if it's 100 yards or 100 feet. But he jumps in there, swims to Jesus because he hears his voice. That's kind of also reminding you of something, right? You can see, but once you hear, where's that come in at?
The sheep know my voice.
The sheep know my voice, and they come, and they obey. Very interesting. So he hears, he throws on his outer garment, jumps into the sea. So I guess the recognition here in Luke 5, 1 through 11, is the same pattern that triggers this memory in their heads. No fish, the word of Jesus, an impossible catch. 3 things happen, just like it did back in the first encounter at the same place. Was it a coincidence? Of course not. Notice the detail, though, that John gives in this. He sees, he says that, he heard the voice, he jumps in. I mean, it's so much detail John is putting into this. The ongoing thing here is, a lot of times testimony isn't enough. You got to be able to really just do and take action. And we've seen that in John 20 and verse 30, as well as Romans 10 and 17. The huge catch, I think that shows complete and utter control over the provisions that Jesus can do in the mission. That he has control over the entire area. Again, it was a miracle. And it says there, the number of fish is 153 that we see later. That basically, I don't know if that has any specific any relevance besides the fact that John was there and knows exactly what happened and knows how many fish is more likely. I know that some of the scholars have debated against that number, but I think that nothing specifically came out of that. John?
I was thinking about the quantity of fish, and that might be a parallel to his mercy, his grace, his abundance that he's willing to share. Right? It's not a few.
Yeah.
It's not limited.
Right.
It's abundance.
Right. Abundance of grace is exactly what he has. So he has this grace for him, right?
That's still in the declare.
Still in the declare. Go ahead.
But also the quality, it was large fish.
Yes.
Worthy of counting.
Yeah, worthy of counting, right? Because it was amazing to them even, right? And they should know that by this time, Christ can do anything. But yet they're still amazed of this area. So that's great application, and that kind of confirms to us that, we got to be able to trust and also obedience. Peter just jumped right in head first. He didn't wait.
Luke gives a little more detail there. It sounds like Jesus is addressing Peter. Did you catch any fish?
Uh-huh.
And no, go to the other side of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And he's addressing Peter. And
Very similar to here.
Peter, with resignation, says, okay, if you say so.
Yeah, and this time they didn't have reservation, but they still were not completely understanding that he will provide. But he did provide. That's a very good note, Neil.
Details.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go into the next scene. The next scene starts out where we're going to read Breakfast with Jesus, where he sits down and talks to them. We're going to see a coal fire, and we're going to see a reset of the denial in this. I'll give you a spoiler alert here. All right, can I get a reader from 9 to 14?
Then as soon as they had come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish which you have just caught. Simon Peter went up and dragged the net to land full of large fish, 153, and although there were so many, the net was not broken. Jesus said to them, come and eat breakfast. Yet none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? Knowing that it was the Lord.
Keep on going.
One more. Then Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and likewise the fish. This is now the third time Jesus showed himself to the disciples after he was raised from the dead.
Okay, here's some key observations in this one that I take of it. When they first got out of the boat, they saw a charcoal fire in place. What does that give us again some deja vu about? The charcoal fire.
Peter warming himself, maybe.
Say again?
Peter warming himself.
Yeah. Fire he was standing around when he denied Christ.
Exactly. They specifically said in 18, where Peter denied that he came in, they were all warming themselves by the fire. He comes to the fire, a charcoal fire, inside an area where he specifically denied Christ. How many times? 3 times. Right, so he comes in there, he comes and sees this charcoal fire. Jesus is setting the mood just right for him, right? Bringing it all in. And There was already fish laid out and there was bread. So what does that tell you? He's providing for him even then. He doesn't sit there and have to say, well, he says bring the fish, but he's not saying bring the fish to cook because he already has them laid out and he's cooked it. Right? He is already setting the table, the meal for his disciples. And the one who denied him as well, right? Abundance grace. We're going to remember that one. So it brings them. So he says, "Okay, go out." And Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have caught." So Peter goes out and went aboard and hauled the net ashore with large fish, as we mentioned over here, 153 of them. There were so many that the net was not torn. I wonder if that was significant, that he's put that detail in there. What about in 5? Was the nets torn? In that point, there were so many fish that the nets were all tearing up in pieces. This time, everything's intact. Everything is there. Don't know if there's significance there, but I've read a lot where they said that it was specifically...
I think it's the before and after. I mean, at that point, they weren't ready to
right?
gather what Jesus had sent them out to
Now
gather.
they are.
Now that's the next
Everything
step.
stays complete. Right? The situation is different than it was before. Even though it's very similar, it's different. All right. The nets were not towards. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now, none of the disciples dared to ask him who you are. That's interesting, isn't it? How he put that in there. You know, not a single one of them dared to ask that question, you know, because I guess they're afraid that, come on, after all this time, you don't know who this is? I just did all this for you? They dared not even ask the question. Whereas before, they were always asking the question, I'm not sure who this is, I'm not sure who that is, but at this point, it's a maturity level as well, in my opinion, that they've kind of already came to agree that, okay, we understand who can do things of this nature. We understand that you have been risen from the dead. We understand that you have came back to see us. Go ahead.
And the provision, like, most of the time, if somebody's providing something for you, you're not questioning them.
Right. Right. There is no questions at all. You have a provider here. And also, I mean, they come to understand they're not going to ask who this is, that this is the Lord.
This is the second time that they've done it. They already did it the first time. She
Yeah.
knew the voice and they heard it.
You know what was interesting about this whole thing is 14. You know, that whole sentence in there, I've been reading over it and trying to figure out how it fits in place. It's kind of just out of area. It doesn't really fit with that paragraph, and it doesn't fit with the paragraph below it. When he says, "This was now the third time Jesus revealed to his disciples after he was raised from the dead." Why do you think he threw that in there? I really don't know. I'm just kind of wondering if does it seem kind of odd to you that he would just throw that in there? Not unless the fact that they didn't ask him who it was this time because it's already the third time. I don't know. But everything's always in threes with John. Things happen in threes, it seems like. And this is the third time he's been revealed, so he specifically states it. It might even be that John was specifically identifying so much detail all the time that we find at the end that this is the beloved who has been with him and speaks the truth, basically. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Good, I'm not the only one. Let's see, what else are we here?
It could be emphasis on completeness, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is that, complete?
3 is complete, yeah. So he was just basically saying that it's complete. This is the third time. I don't know, the third time, the third and last, you know, it doesn't really specify.
I mean, we're about to have a reference to something that came in threes.
Exactly.
Just Peter's denial.
Right.
So I think it's probably just sort of that
Symbolic?
little motif. I think it's more just sort of echoing that
Right.
literary sort of.
Right. So the first 3 were what? The
I
denial.
don't know.
Boom. The denial, 3 times he showed him, and now we're going to see 3 times where he asked him a question, specifically to Peter. Any other questions on that scene? Any other comments on that scene? Let's take a look at scene 4. And this is the Do You Love Me restoration, recommissioning. Restoring and recommissioning. Is there a requirement for restoring and recommissioning at this point that we know of before we read this? Who needs to be restored? We all need to be restored all the time, continuously restored, of course. But particularly in this situation, who?
And it's setting it up, obviously, for Peter.
Yes.
But even with him wanting to go fishing, like Jed was saying, he's going back to his day job. He doesn't really feel like he's a part of this, and that things have changed that much.
Right, right. You know, and wouldn't you feel a little bit awkward if you just denied Jesus to his face 3 times, and then all of a sudden he's back here again, and it's like, ugh, am I really even capable of being an apostle or disciple of you, Christ? You'd be crushed.
I mean, from Peter's perspective, when he denied Christ, it was over.
Yeah.
that was him cutting ties with this thing he used to do.
Right.
And this is a continuation of that almost.
Right, so he started it back up. So that's why we call it a restoration and recommissioning in this situation, where Jesus has to sit and talk with him. Go ahead.
When you feel like a failure, you try to find something that makes you feel better.
Yeah, that you know how to do.
Like I gotta do something right.
Right.
And you spend all night and still didn't do that right.
Yeah.
So, you know, when day broke, you still felt
Right.
like a failure.
Right.
And it's always the Lord, the one
Right.
guy.
So what was their first commissioning when they told him, you know, back in Luke 5? Put down your nets and do what? Follow me. And here they're picking their nets back up again. Right? Because they're comfortable with it. Can we do the same thing? Just like you said. Absolutely can. Right? I'm going to have to quit this, and go back to what I'm good at. Well, you've already put that away, John. It's time to do something different. Again, what they were doing was not wrong, but it wasn't what Jesus wanted them to do, and what they were commissioned to do. That's the difference. So let's take a look at this in 15. Can I get a read it from 15 through 17?
When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, Feed my lambs. He said to him the second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, Tend my sheep. He said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said it to him the third time, Do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, Feed my sheep.
Interesting. You know, it's almost like, Peter's like, why do you pick on me, Jesus? You know, out of all the other ones there, he goes and sits with Peter. Why do you think that is? I think it's a great example, for me, for all of us. But why Peter in this situation?
What he needs.
What he needs. What we all need. What the other disciples could also experience, but did they need it? Yeah, they needed it. They needed to hear that. He was the best example of it.
He had ambition in what he did, the things that he did.
Right.
And he was a natural leader.
Right.
They were drawn to follow him.
Right.
What he did. So Jesus has to give him the redemption that he needs and the motivation to be able to be that
To
leader.
restore him.
Restore him, yeah.
Right, which we all need. We all need his grace. Look how Jesus does it, though. He's so, he doesn't come in, like we would at times and do it wrong, where we're like, I can't believe you did that, Peter. What? I told you do that. Aren't you listening? What did I tell you back, back when we were back in Luke 5? Back when we first met. You were to follow me. You said you would, and you didn't. What do you have to say for yourself? Go ahead, Neil.
It sounds to me like after breakfast, we're just left with Jesus, Peter, and John. Sounds like the other guys left
Maybe.
because of this private conversation that Jesus has with Peter, and then there's another.
Could be. I find it odd, though. I mean, if you think about it, Jesus finally comes back and restored with his disciples and apostles. And why would they leave? It's still around. They're sitting around the fire. They just finished breakfast. it was a private conversation, or at least a conversation that was directly to them. Others maybe have been listening, just very similar to the situation. Maybe did, maybe didn't. But the key is that we all can experience that, and it's interesting that John was there too. At that point. So let's get the setting right here. So they're sitting there reclining after they've eaten breakfast. There's a conversation. Jesus brings up the conversation, and he asks him specifically. First of all, he calls him when Jesus addresses him. He calls him Simon, son of John. He didn't call him Peter. Did you notice that? Simon, son of John. Didn't call him Peter. Peter was what? Rock. He didn't call him the Rock at that point, right? I don't know if it was specific or not, but he didn't. He didn't call him back in his name that he had provided him. He calls him Simon, son of John. So all of a sudden he saw, Peter's like, hey, you're not calling me my name? What's going on? Are we not good? I don't know. But it is something. It's something different. He's not calling him Peter the Rock. Because at that time, I'm sure Peter probably wasn't feeling it like the Rock, right? How can he feel like that after what he's done? We would feel the same way. We would feel a little bit down. We feel, not wanting to make eye contact because we know it's coming. We know this talk is there. I have to be able to repent. I have to be able to at least hear something, hear some reaffirming words, some grace. And Jesus does that. He asked him that question. He asked him the first time, do you love me more than these? What is he talking about there?
We don't know.
We have an idea. It's not about his disciples, because we already know that he doesn't approve of that. When they go back and say, do you love me more than my disciples? No. Do you love me more than, what were they doing? What did they go back to? Fishing.
But do you love me more than these disciples love me?
Well, no. Because he doesn't approve of that. And we've seen that over and over again. Go ahead.
But fishing in itself is a sport or an activity.
Maybe he was pointing to the fish.
Patience.
Right. Because he told him to bring up the fish. Bring up these big fish. 53 of them. Do you love me more than these? Go ahead.
I just think he's trying to tell him you're not fishing.
Well, he's not supposed to be.
You're done with this.
Right. Okay, so he asked him that. He asked him the question, do you love me more than these? What does Peter say?
You know I love you.
You know I love you, right?
But now
So-
they use different terms.
They use different loves. Exactly. Agape love, Leo love. When you read the commentaries on that, it's back and forth. But then in a lot of times they said that the gospel and the Bible switches back and forth at times. But you're right, because there's more of a passionate love and there's more of an intimate love, the stronger love. So it's common according to what I've read. But you're right, they did do that, and that is a big challenge that people go through. Glenn?
John, do you think you meant more than these means worldly stuff, worldly activities?
Exactly. That's where it's what we have to always come up with ourselves.
Yeah.
What do we love more?
Yeah.
Do you love me? Do you love me more than these?
Yeah.
Do you love me more than this life?
I'm saying back to fishermen, back to thinking of yourselves, not thinking of what I've, got you all together for.
Right. And then he says, yes, Lord, you know I love you, he said to them. Then what does Jesus say?
Feed my lambs.
Then if you do that, feed my lambs. Now what does that mean by feeding lambs, first of all? I'm a fisherman. What do you mean? I'm not a shepherd? No.
Go tell others of him.
Right. Feed them what?
His words.
His gospel, the word.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's the feed them the gospel.
Yes, feed him his words, and he's always talked about that. Where that was their charter, to go out and spread the word. Tell them about me. Go ahead, Nick.
Jesus says, "Do you love me?" Agape.
Mm-hmm.
It's unconditional love. That's not the sort of thing you aim at material things.
Right.
So that's why I'm convinced it's more like, do you love me in a greater degree than these disciples love me? he does not use that in the second and third question.
Well,
These is not in there.
yeah.
Do you, just
Debatable.
simply, do you love me?
Right, debatable. However, I don't think that he was trying to pit them against each other in regard to who loves me more in that situation. Let's go with.
I think it either way, what the purpose of Jesus questioning here is to show him that how you feel is mostly irrelevant. What are you doing about it is the
action.
The question.
Yeah.
Okay, if you love me, then you would be feeding my sheep, but here you are fishing.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary for Jesus to be trying to pit them against each other for Neil's interpretation to be correct, because Peter's the one who's claimed in the past, even if they all fall away, I'll never fall away. And then he turns around and denies
Good
Jesus
point.
3 times.
Yeah.
So that could be Jesus being like, do you love me more than they do? You know, you said you did, do
Right.
you? And then the 3.
So what was the second question? What was the second question Jesus said?
Do you love me?
Do you love me? And what did Peter say?
You know I like you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He switched the emphasis on it. Now, what did Jesus go back and tell him then for the second time?
Feed my sheep. Now.
That's right. Tend to my sheep. Right? Tend to my sheep. So he switched it from lambs, feeding, to tending. Sheep, lambs are smaller, sheep are older. It's almost like a whole gamut. I don't know specifically in that regard, but it's very similar to what his job was supposed to be doing. And he's not doing it. So, or he wasn't doing it. Now, he goes back to him for the 3rd time. And what does he ask him?
Do you like me, Peter?
Do you like me? Then what does he say?
Peter says, you know I like you.
That's right. And at that point, he what?
Jesus has relented.
Yes. He has shown him at that point. Peter probably says, I can see now what this is all about. Right, go ahead.
He also acknowledges Jesus' omniscience. He said, you know everything.
You know everything.
So you know the answer to this question before you're even asking him.
Right.
Obviously, the things that Jesus says.
And what happened before when that happened? Jesus said the same thing. You know, he knew it before that Peter would deny him 3 times. He denied him, but what does Jesus say? Then you love me. Then he says, what does he tell him to go do?
Feed my sheep.
Feed my sheep. All right, so we have the 3 denials, and then we have in 18 to 19. Somebody read that.
Most assuredly I say to you, when you were younger, you girded yourself and walked where you wished. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hand, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish. This he spoke, signifying by the death, by what death he would glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said to him, follow me.
So here, Jesus is basically telling him, okay, right now, and in the past, you were able to do what you wanted to do. You had freedom. But, as he says at the end, follow me, what's going to happen at that point?
He's hinting that he will be crucified just like Jesus.
He will be crucified. And that's what they said, I guess the terms, the outstretch of the hands is a crucifixion, more or less, in that regard. So he's telling him what's going to happen. He's letting him know, if when you follow me, that's going to happen. Go ahead.
I think it's interesting here that this is making reference to something that apparently was clearly understood by its audience that we don't really have the same context for, because it's hinting that he's crucified. It doesn't say that directly,
right?
And we don't really have any other confirmation anywhere else in the Bible or in other historical texts that Peter was ever crucified. Right. So it's very interesting. We have this sort of askance reference to something that might be crucifixion.
And then we see in the last scene here where he actually does the questioning. Peter does. What does he do in Peter's fashion again? He overhears a conversation earlier between Jesus and who? The beloved, exactly. And so what does Peter do? Peter asks Jesus, he says, well, what about him? Again, the same thing. And what does Jesus tell him? This is very interesting as well, and we have to be able to understand this ourselves.
What is it to you?
That's right.
I do want him to live forever.
You worry about Peter and follow me. You worry about Peter and follow me. What happens to him, I can let him go until I come back. Right? He doesn't say he's going to, but then what does other people start doing? They overheard it, and they took him out of context. And that's interesting. Now, John has to identify that. Why does he do that?
It's like you're hearing the rumors.
He's heard the rumors, and he's saying it, right?
Like, y'all, I think I'm gonna die.
Yeah. What about this guy? Tell me about him.
I'm gonna die.
Right. So I mean, it tells us again that Jesus is all-knowing, and we have to be able to be a very human reaction like Peter would do. Well, what about this guy? We do that all the time. And what do we say to our kids when they ask about that? You worry about you. Right?
Yeah.
But again, it's a misunderstanding. It shows you again, Peter is human, and he has human tendencies. Now, has he grown? Absolutely, he's grown. Can you imagine how much he's grown in that situation? And I sometimes, when I go through the book of John, I look back at myself and say, man, I'm really, lacking as opposed to these disciples and what they're actually giving up and doing for Christ, to following Christ and understanding what happens. But we see that at the end, and we also see the closing where John says, it is me basically who wrote this, and I'm telling you the truth. And I wrote this because so you can believe again. Anyway,